So good evening, good evening each and every one of you. This is Basavaraj. I'm your biology master teacher. I hope everyone is safe and sound and doing extremely well in life. Now students, this is a new channel, that is welcome to Diksha Vedantu 9th and 10th English. You heard me correct. This is the channel where we'll be teaching your entire 10th syllabus in pure English, nothing else. And students, as I told you in the introduction part, there are so many channels on YouTube, but there are very few channels who will teach you in pure English at 9th and 10th level. And this is the channel which you will be needing, because this is a channel which will help you actually securing your marks, that is 95%. That is the aim which we are keeping to all of you. So good evening students. Before I start anything, I want everyone in the chat should tell me if I am audible and the presentation behind me is visible to each and every one of you. Hello Rahul, welcome to the class. Now quickly tell me in the chat. Let's wait a couple of minutes for everyone to join, and once everyone joins, we'll be starting the chapter, that is how do organisms reproduce. Clear? Can we start? Can we start the class today? Now I know this is a little late class. This class was supposed to happen around 8 or 7 p.m. but I take classes on other channel also, that is Vedantu Neat English. So there was a small delay in finishing the class there. But now we are here, we are starting that new chapter, that is how do organisms reproduce. Now students, I'll be teaching the entire chapter, right? We will be finishing the entire chapter today, all the way from the basics. Even if you do not know anything about this chapter and you have zero knowledge, I will make sure you understand this chapter, every single line of NCERT. So can we start with the Josh? Do we have the energy, everyone? Let me check if I'm live here on the phone. 1 second students. If we are live, can we start? Yes, are we live? Are we live? Yes, we are live. So students, hello, good evening. Hello, good evening, Sunil. Now, let me ask you a small thing. Let me ask you a small question as usual. Before my class starts, I usually ask a small question, okay? The question here is, you have noticed the mango tree behind your house? The mango tree behind your house, does it do sexual reproduction or does it do asexual reproduction? Quickly tell me in the chat. Yes, quickly tell me in the chat if the mango tree behind your house, or you might have seen a mango tree anywhere, does the mango tree does sexual reproduction or does it do asexual reproduction? Quickly tell me in the chat right now. Now students, you need to know one thing. Most of your higher plants, like your mango tree, peepal tree, all these higher plants are called as angiosperms, and these angiosperms only do sexual reproduction. So with that, let's start the class. Let's see some comments here. Hello sir, I am in class 9. Please help me. I have exam on Monday. Why not? Tell me in the chat, Radhika, which exam do you have on Monday? I will make sure I will teach that chapter tomorrow. What say? I will teach you that subject tomorrow, because this is a channel where we are here for you. So Rahul, it is not asexual reproduction. Your mango tree, your peepal tree, all of these trees will do sexual reproduction. Okay. Now Sunil is telling me vegetative propagation. Yes, vegetative propagation can also be done by higher plants. Yes. Science, why not science? So students, tell me Radhika, or all the students in the chat, tell me in the comments today's video, which is the chapter which you want to learn from your Basavaraj sir. Okay, are you excited? Hello. Now, the first thing here I want all of you to understand is, before you understand reproduction, there are certain events in life, all of you know, that is, every single organism is the birth first, then there is growth, then the organism will die. Yes, an organism will, there is a birth of organism, then there is growth of organism, then there is death of organism. Now between this birth, growth and death, there is a phenomena which happens in most of the organisms, that is called as reproduction. So reproduction is an event in the life cycle of an organism which makes sure the continuity of life is maintained on earth. That is reproduction. Now students, tell me in the chat, do all the organisms in the world show reproduction? The answer is yes. Every single organism will show reproduction, but the mechanism of reproduction, that will change. For example, the bacteria here has a different mechanism for reproduction. That is, a bacteria will show fission. Yes, that is a type of asexual reproduction. Then we have your plants. Plants can show asexual as well as sexual reproduction. Then we have the honeybee, kangaroo, or even humans or horse. Every single organism has a different mechanism for reproduction, but every single organism on this earth will do reproduction. But there are certain exceptions like the drone bee, or there is mules, because they are sterile from birth. Okay, then you'll be, don't come to me, sir, you told every organism is every organism will do reproduction. But there are some organisms which cannot do reproduction. We call them sterile organisms. Okay, now don't come later on to me back. Okay, now if you want to give me a definition, yes, someone is asking me, Sam, will you complete all subjects within 20 days for board examination? The answer is yes, I will complete all the chapters. For example, students, I take biology. My specialization is biology. Before I teach you further, I'll tell you. I have done my undergraduation with a triple major in chemistry, botany and environmental sciences. I have done my post-graduation, that is a master's degree in botany. So my specialization is biology. Any doubt in biology, I can answer. Okay. Monday is my exam. Please help. So for Radhika's sake, I'll be teaching science tomorrow. I'll be teaching gravitation and atoms and molecules. Only 2 chapters. Okay. So I will ask my chemistry teacher and physics teacher to teach tomorrow just for you. I'll do that. Okay. Now let me tell you a basic definition, like a biological definition of reproduction. Reproduction is a biological process. Yes, it is a biological process in which an organism gives rise to a young one. So reproduction is a biological process where an organism gives birth to a young one, and a young one is also called as offspring here. Yes, the young one is also called as offspring. Similar to itself. Now what is the meaning of similar to itself? You might have noticed a dog will give birth to a dog, a cat will give birth to a cat. But have you ever seen a dog giving birth to a cat? No, that will not happen, right? Remember that. A dog will always give birth to a dog. Okay. The offspring grows, matures, and in turn produces a new offspring. So what is reproduction? Reproduction is a biological process in which an organism gives birth to a young one, and that young one is similar to the parent. Young one, the offspring, the cute small baby, the small cat or kitten is identical or similar to the parent. Okay, that is the definition of reproduction. Now the question is, all of you might have this question, right? Wow, might have this question, why do organisms reproduce? Yes, why do organisms need to reproduce? What is the need of this? Yes, what is the need of this reproduction? The answer is very simple, right? The reproduction is necessary to continue the life on earth. Every single organism, to make sure the diversity and the continuity of life to maintain on earth, reproduction is important. Now I'll ask you a question. If an organism is shown in its lifetime, right? For example, organism A, we have an organism number A here. Any organism you take, the organism will complete its life cycle, that is the birth, and finally the organism is dead. Birth and death. Now if I ask you, is reproduction absolutely necessary to finish the lifespan? Listen to my question. Is the process of reproduction absolutely important to finish the lifespan? The answer would be no. Reproduction actually is not absolutely required to complete a lifespan, but it is important to maintain the life on earth. See, this is a line of your NCERT. Reproduction is not necessary to maintain the life of an individual, but it is important to make sure the life continues on earth. Now what is the basic event in reproduction? Your NCERT, if you open right now, the basic event in reproduction is nothing but the copying of blueprint. The basic event in reproduction is copy of blueprint. Now what is this blueprint? The blueprint is nothing but the deoxyribonucleic acid. So the copying of blueprint is nothing but copying of DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. So this particular DNA in the body, right, this DNA has all the information required to create a new body. So the basic event in reproduction is copying of DNA. Now your NCERT tells you one line now. NCERT tells one line. When the DNA copying is happening, there can be some small errors. There can be small errors. Now what are these errors? Now what is the significance of these errors? Listen to me very carefully now. Listen to me very carefully. Where is this? Errors are all. The answer, the two cells of course similar, but are they likely to be identical? When the one cell is splitting into two cells, when the DNA is being copied, are both the cells exactly the same? The answer would be no. Why? The answer to this question will depend on how accurately the copying of reaction involvement occurs. No biochemical reaction. Listen to my lines. Listen to the lines here, all of you. No biochemical reaction is absolutely reliable. Therefore, it is only to be expected that the process of copying of DNA, the basic event in the reproduction, will have some variations each time. And these variations are called as inbuilt variations. They're called as, this inbuilt tendency of variation during reproduction is the basis of evolution also. Don't worry, the evolution part has been removed now, but you should know the basic event in reproduction is copying of DNA, and when DNA is being copied, there can be certain variations. Clear? That concept should be clear in your head. Now I'll tell you what is the importance of this variation. Now students, there is a small story in your NCERT also. A small cute story is there. The NCERT tells you a small story that there is a pond here. Think there is a pond here. In this pond, there are certain bacteria are growing. Yes, in this pond there are certain bacteria are growing. Yes, certain bacteria are growing. Now everyone is happy. The bacteria is happy. Everyone is happy now. Now what happens? Due to some reasons, any reason, what happens here is the temperature of the water suddenly increases. Right? The temperature of water suddenly increases. The temperature is now increasing. The temperature of the water is increasing. Now what happens to this bacteria? If the temperature is suddenly increasing, will the bacteria survive in the water or the bacteria will die? The bacteria actually cannot survive that increased temperature. But there are some bacteria which undergo modification. Right? There are some bacteria which will completely cover itself, like it will wear an armor, one iron armor it will wear. The certain bacteria will completely undergo certain changes called as variation. Some bacteria will undergo variation now. Now when the temperature increases, when the temperature is increasing, apart from these bacteria, all the other bacteria will completely die. Why? Because they cannot protect themselves from the increased temperature. Hence, these bacteria which underwent variation is able to survive in the new environment, that is increase in the temperature. That is the importance of variation. So variation is important for evolution. Variation is important for adaptation. Clear? Now let us get to the big main part of the chapter now. This is what you've been learning, but your NCERT has told all those concepts, so we have discussed all those concepts. So if you talk about reproduction, there are mainly two types of reproduction. Now one type of reproduction is called as what? Asexual reproduction. One type of reproduction is called as what? Asexual reproduction. The other one is called as sexual reproduction. Yes, the other one is called as sexual reproduction. Now quickly tell me in the chat, what is the difference between asexual reproduction and sexual reproduction? Now if you know, in asexual reproduction there is actually involvement of only one parent, nothing more. There are single parent is involved here. In asexual reproduction there is involvement of a single parent. But in the case of your sexual reproduction, in the case of sexual reproduction there is involvement of two parents. Involvement of two parents. Clear? Involvement of two parents. Now quickly tell me in the chat, what about the gametes fusion? In the case of humans, we know there are two gametes. That is, sperm is there, egg is there, egg and sperm are fusing. That is called as fertilization in humans. But in the case of asexual reproduction, is there a fusion of gametes? No. In the case of asexual reproduction, there is no fusion of gametes. There is no fusion of gametes here. But in the case of sexual reproduction, in the case of sexual reproduction, there is fusion of gametes. There is what? There is fusion of gametes here. Fusion of gametes in the case of sexual reproduction. Clear? Now what about offspring here, sir? What about the offspring, the child? In the case of your asexual reproduction, in the case of asexual reproduction, the offspring, the child here is actually called as what? Clone. Because it is copy paste. It is called as clone here. Why? Because the offspring here is right. It is copy paste of the parent. Just like the parent, it will look completely identical. Genetically, morphologically, same to same. That is called as clone in the case of asexual reproduction. But in the case of sexual reproduction, the offspring or the child is actually a little bit different. The offspring or the child here is what? The offspring here is different. Clear? That is the difference between sexual reproduction as well as asexual reproduction. Let me summarize it for you. In the case of asexual reproduction, there is a single parent is involved. Along with that, there is no fusion of gametes. But in the case of sexual reproduction, there is two parents are involved and there is fusion of gametes here. There is fusion of gametes here. The offspring, the child in the case of sexual reproduction is different from the parent. But in the case of asexual reproduction, it is called as clone. It is called as clone. Clear? Clear? Now, let me tell you small different types of asexual reproduction. I told you asexual reproduction is the production of offspring by a single parent. There is no formation fusion of gametes, but here in the case of asexual reproduction, there is no fusion of gamete. Clear? Formation can happen. The production of identical offspring is called as clones here. Now asexual reproduction is seen where? I asked you a question in the starting. Asexual reproduction, is it seen in the case of your mango plant? Is it asexual reproduction is seen in the case of humans? No, sir. Then where do you see asexual reproduction? Asexual reproduction is actually seen in the case of simple unicellular organisms. Only in the case of unicellular organisms, asexual reproduction is seen. Clear? That is, it is rare or absent in higher invertebrates or vertebrates. This is not important for you. That is in higher definition. Okay. The asexual reproduction is completely absent in higher animals like humans. It is completely absent. Now, let's talk about types of asexual reproduction now. What are the different types of asexual reproduction? Now, if you open your NCERT and check, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 different types of asexual reproduction. Now, in your board examination, each one of them can be asked as a separate question. Remember that. Each one of them can be asked as a separate question. Or they can ask you the entire, name 3 asexual reproduction. What is asexual reproduction? And name 3 of them. Explain 3 of them. A question can come like that directly. That time you should know. Okay. Now let's understand one by one. Let's understand what is fission first. Let's understand what is fission first. What is fission? One second. What is this? Yeah. Complete body acts as reproductive unit. Now in the case of fission, now listen to me very carefully. Listen to me very, very carefully. Now what is fusion? Fusion means joining. Fusion means joining. Fission means separating. Listen to me very carefully. Fusion means joining. Fission, F-I-S-S-I-O-N. Fission means to separate out. See, that is called as fission here. So if you look at this particular cell here, this particular cell here, if one cell is completely dividing, into 2 daughter cells, so one cell is separating out into 2 daughter cells, that is called as fission. There are multiple steps in fission, like your karyogamy, then there is something called as cytogamy. Yes, there is chirokinesis, right? Chirokinesis. There is something called as cytokinesis. Now what is this chirokinesis? Chirokinesis means splitting of nucleus. Chiro means nucleus. Chirokinesis means splitting of nucleus. Here, can you see? Splitting of nucleus. Then there is something called as cytokinesis. What is cytokinesis? Cytokinesis means splitting of cytoplasm. Splitting of cytoplasm. Then we finally have the 2 daughter cells. Finally, we have the 2 daughter cells. Now listen to me very carefully. In your NCERT, there are 2 types of fission. One is called as binary fission. The other one is called as multiple fission. One is called as binary fission. The other one is called as what? Multiple fission. Now listen to me very carefully. Binary means 2. Binary means 2. If one cell is dividing into 2 cells, that is called as binary fission. That is 2 offspring from one parent. If one cell is dividing into 2 cells, that is called as binary fission. Now what about multiple? Multiple means many. Multiple means many. If one cell is dividing into many cells, if one cell is dividing into many offspring, that is called as multiple fission. A large number of offsprings from one parent. From one parent we are getting many offsprings. Clear? Clear? Now, next point. That is, here can you see again they are mentioning the same thing here. That is, first the nucleus is dividing. Yes, first the DNA is dividing. Once the DNA is dividing, then the cytoplasm is dividing. Then we finally have the 2 daughter cells. Now this is the binary fission with the help of animation. Sir, I am not able to open the PYQs from the last 5 years in the description. I'll check with once again. I think it is there in the description. All you need to do is click on it. A new PDF, then when a page will open, you need to log in there and you will get the 5 years PYQ. If it is not opening, I'll check it one more time later on. Okay. Now, this is asexual reproduction in the case of amoeba. In the case of amoeba. So if you notice here, the first step here, the nucleus is dividing. Can you see nucleus dividing? Then the entire cytoplasm is dividing. Yes, first the nucleus is dividing, then the entire cytoplasm is dividing. Clear? That is called as binary fission. Then finally, from one cell, we are getting 2 different daughter cells. We are getting 2 different daughter cells. That is called as binary fission. Binary means 2. When one cell is dividing into 2 cells, that is called as binary fission. Now what about multiple fission? Now this is a little bit outside your NCERT. That is, in multiple fission, there is something called as longitudinal binary fission. Longitudinal, see, this is longitudinal, like this is called as longitudinal. This is longitudinal. If it is dividing longitudinally, that is also binary. See, one cell is dividing into two cells, that is longitudinal division. The example is euglena. You don't need to remember this. I will tell you what example you need to remember, that I'll tell you later. Okay. Then there is something called as transverse division. Yes, it is transverse division. One cell will divide transversely, that is paramecium is the example here. Now example which is given in your NCERT for longitudinal division is nothing but leishmania. Leishmania, that is responsible for Kala Azar. Now if you look at the leishmania here, it is dividing longitudinally like this. Can you see? Longitudinal binary fission. Longitudinal binary fission. Now this is your binary fission in the case of amoeba. So students, in your NCERT there are two types of binary fission. First type is amoeba, where it is dividing in any plane, that is amoeba. The second type of binary fission which is given in your NCERT is longitudinal binary fission. Example is leishmania. Now what about multiple fission? Is there example? The answer is yes. The answer to that question is the plasmodium. The plasmodium, where one cell will divide into many cells. That is the example of multiple fission. Here, multiple fission in plasmodium. Multiple fission in plasmodium. Clear? Now, can we go to budding? Can we go to budding now? Any doubt in the case of binary fission? No doubt. Let's go to budding now. Let's understand budding. Okay. Now in budding what happens is, we have one parent cell. Now in this parent cell, at one particular point, in this parent cell at one particular point here, what happens? Repeated cell division. The cell is continuously dividing there. The cell is continuously dividing and it is resulting into a small outgrowth called as a bud. Can you see? A small outgrowth as a bud. Now what happens later on? Later on, the nucleus and cytoplasm is sent here. Yes, nucleus and cytoplasm is sent there. And finally what happens? In the end we get a chain of buds. That is, a bud is developed as an outgrowth due to the repeated cell division. Because of repeated cell division, a small bud is developing. Now when fully matured, detaches from the parent body and becomes a independent individual. Now your NCERT actually is telling you two different examples for budding. The first example for budding is yeast. The first example is the yeast here. This is budding in yeast. The second example here is the hydra. Hydra also shows fragmentation. It also shows budding. Hydra also shows budding. Clear? Now the next one is fragmentation. Now what is the meaning of fragment? You might have heard this word when you say a mirror is broken into many fragments. Fragments means pieces. A fragment means pieces. Now here the example which is given in your NCERT is here. That is your Spirogyra. The word is really not coming from my mouth. Spirogyra. Now what happens? Listen to me very carefully. This Spirogyra here is there now. It is aram se chilling in the water now. It is aram se chilling in water. Now what happens suddenly? There is a sudden water current. Sudden water current is coming and this particular Spirogyra is completely becoming piece. It is becoming piece. That is, each piece is called as what? Fragment. Each piece is called as what? Fragment. Now students, listen to me very carefully. Now this one fragment is there, no? This each fragment can actually grow into a complete adult. Each fragment can grow into a complete adult. That is called as fragmentation. Clear? We have one Spirogyra here, adult Spirogyra. It will become completely piece and each piece is called as a fragment and each piece can grow into a complete new adult. That is called as fragmentation. Example is Spirogyra. Clear? Now the next one is spore formation. You might have seen when you take a bread piece and you have not, the expiry date on the bread piece is, for example, today is 22nd. Today is the 26th, sorry. Today is the last day for the bread. Today is the last day for the bread piece to expire. Right? Today is the last day the bread piece is going to expire. But if you keep the bread piece for 2 to 3 days more, if you keep the bread piece 2 to 3 days more in the house, do you notice some white color things on the top of it? Later on, can you notice some black color thing on the top of bread? That is called as bread mold or rhizopus. That is nothing but a fungus. A fungus is growing on top of the bread, and this fungus, right, can do a reproduction, can do asexual reproduction by spore formation. Can you see? This is the bread piece. On the bread piece, a fungus is growing, and the fungus has something called as vegetative part and also reproductive part. The vegetative part is called as mycelium. It's called as mycelium. Can you see this? This is called as mycelium. Now this is called as sporangiophore, and this is called as sporangium. This is called as what? Sporangium. Now inside the sporangium there are many spores. There are many spores. Now this sporangium will burst open and it will release all the spores. It will release all the spores. And when the spores are released, the spores will travel in air. The spores will travel in air and finally reach one new place. From that new place, a new fungus will start to grow. So that is called as spore formation. So in the case of rhizopus and bread mold and other funguses, there are production of different types of spores. Clear? Different type of spores, and these spores will burst open from the sporangium. See, this is the sporangium. This is the mycelium. Now inside the sporangium there are spores. These spores will completely burst open and it will travel. Sir, one more time, spore formation, why not? Students, listen to me very carefully. This is the bread piece. On this bread piece there is small fungus is growing. Now on this small fungus there is something called as, it has two parts. The fungus which is growing on the bread has two parts. One is called as mycelium. Here, this part, can you see this part? This part is called as mycelium, and this part is called as sporangiophore. Sporangiophore, and this is called as sporangium. It is called as sporangium. Clear? It is clear. Now what happens, listen to me very carefully. When this bread needs to do reproduction, it will produce spores. This particular fungus will produce spores. But where are the spores? The spores are produced inside the sporangium. Spores are produced inside the sporangium. See here, can you see spores? And when the spores are produced, this sporangium, can you see? This sporangium will burst open and it will completely release the spores. Completely release the spores. Clear? It will completely release the spores. See here, spores are produced by asexual reproduction in sporangium. So if they ask you what is spore formation, this is what you need to write. Spores are produced by asexual reproduction in sporangium. Sporangium burst and spread the spores. Spores produce a new fungus. Spores will produce a new fungus. Clear? That is called as spore formation. This is seen in the case of rhizopus. In the case of rhizopus, that is called as bread mold. That is called as bread mold. See, inside the sporangium spores, now when the spores are released, the spores will travel and go to some other piece. From there also, a new fungus will start to grow. A new fungus will start to grow. Clear? Meenakshi, right? Meenakshi, is it clear? If you're still confused, do not worry. Next time what I'll do is, I will bring NCERT only. I will tell you, I'll mark in NCERT what you need to write. Make a session on heredity, definitely. That is my next chapter. The next chapter I'll be teaching you is heredity and heredity. Okay. Now, what is regeneration? How many of you have seen lizard? How many of you have seen lizard? Now tell me honestly, how many of you are scared of lizard now? Tell me fast. How many of you are scared of lizard? That one small lizard in the corner will be there now, it makes some kur sound. If you cut the tail of the lizard now, if you cut the tail of the lizard, the tail will actually grow back. If you cut the tail will grow back. That is called as regeneration. That is called as regeneration. Okay, many fully differentiated organisms have ability to give rise to a new individual or organism from their body part. From the entire body part, right? From the entire body part only, the body part is splitting open, and each part will now become a new organism. See here, this is an example called planaria. When the body is splitting into half, right, the entire part will become a new individual. See, it is cutting like this. This will grow into a new part. This will grow into a new part. Magic. Yes. That's why this planaria, right, they are also called as immortal. You might have heard in Hindu mythology, there was a, a Rakshasa called as Raktabij. Yes, when every drop of that monster fell on the ground, a new monster would arise from there. Remember the story? Just like that, Raktabij, this is also like that. Every single time one part is cut, it will grow into a completely new adult. Clear? Yes, human liver cells can also regenerate. Yes, that is why you can see human liver cells now, they'll have separate transportation. Now, see, this is one adult is there. While parts will get into cut, now each part will grow into a new adult. Now this is actually different from your fragmentation. Why? Because in fragmentation it was happening by chance. Here also happening by chance. But in this case, right, in this case, animals cannot depend on being cut all the time. That's why it's different from your fragmentation. See here, fragmentation, during the process of fragmentation, an organism splits into fragments, and each of these fragments develop into an individual organism. That is the definition of fragmentation. That is the definition of fragmentation. Here, during the process of regeneration, an organism regrow its particular body part in case there is a damage to it. When it is regrowing the part, entire organism is born again. Clear? See, in the case of regeneration, a new part is growing, but in this case, the entire organism is only growing from the one part. Okay. Now, each fragment forms into a new organism. There are no new organisms formed during this process. That is, complete regeneration is happening here. So, which animal undergoes both regeneration and budding? Now, there are actually many organisms which will undergo regeneration and budding also. Right? Many organisms, like your hydra. Hydra can also undergo regeneration and budding sometimes. Okay. Now, these regenerating cells, right? These regenerating cells are called as totipotent cells. Now, these cells are actually present even in humans also. Guess where? In the case of humans, they're actually present in the where? They're called as stem cells. During the embryonic growth, right? Embryonic stage, there is something called as stem cells. The stem cells has ability to grow into any organ. Clear? In the case of humans, it's called as stem cells. Now, then we have something called as vegetative propagation. Now, what is vegetative propagation? Vegetative propagation is a phenomena which is seen in the case of your higher plants, not like your small plants, not in bryophytes, not in pteridophytes, in higher plants. When I say higher plants, I mean angiosperms. Yes, asexual reproduction in the higher plants. Plants propagate by a part of their body other than the seed. Plants will able to produce a new plant, but they are not using the seed here. Now, if I remember, last year in the board examination, there was a question. What was the question? A farmer wants to grow a new plant. A farmer wants to grow a new plant, but he does not have seeds. What can he do? The answer is vegetative propagation. If a plant is growing without seed, that is called as vegetative propagation. Clear? Sir, study NEET whether to have key foundation in 9th and 10th. Yes, students, I always tell in my NEET classes, if you have a good foundation in 9th and 10th, right, your NEET will become very easy. Because I've been teaching NEET from couple of years now, and I see a lot of students struggle with 11th portion. Why? Because their 9th and 10th portion is not clear. They just mug up in 9th and 10th, they just read classwork and homework, they go write the exam, percentage will come. But when you go to 11th, if you want to study, become a doctor, your 9th and 10th is actually very important. Okay. Now, if you vegetative propagules, now if you have noticed in the potato, right, in the case of the potato, if you keep in one corner of the room, on the potato or potato, whatever you call it, one small eye will come. Yes, have you noticed? On this potato, one small eye will come up. Yes, that is actually, if you talk about your 11th and 12th, that is called as axillary bud, but for you that is not important. This eye is called as eye of potato. It is called as eye of potato. Now if you cut this eye now, if you take this, cut this eye and keep it in soil, a new plant will grow from there. A new plant will start to grow from there. Similarly, if you take your onion and cut the stem. Now quickly tell me in the chat, where is the stem here? In this onion, where is the stem? This is a NEET question actually. This is a NEET level question. Where is the stem here? Can you see the stem here anywhere? Where is the stem? The stem here is actually, can you see the small part here? The disc part, can you see this? This is the stem. That is the stem of the onion. It is called as, it is a stem modification. Okay. So next time when your mother is cutting onions now, tell your mother, Mummy, have you seen the stem of the onion? Because you cut it and throw, right? You tell there is cancer in this. That is the stem here. And you eat the leaves of the onion. Okay. That is not the root. This is the stem here. From the stem there will be roots. Clear? Now, what is vegetative propagules? Vegetative unit that helps in formation of new plant. For example, here this eye or the stem here or this particular leaf here, right, that is called as vegetative propagule. A part of the plant which is helping to produce a new plant, that is called as vegetative propagule. Clear? Now, there are two types of vegetative propagation. One is called as natural method. We have natural method of vegetative propagation. There is something called as artificial method of vegetative propagation. In a natural method, right, we can do vegetative propagation by roots. We can cut some roots and we can add a new plant will grow from there. Or we can use some leaves. Yes, in the case of leaves, the example which is given in your NCERT is bryophyllum. In the leaf of the bryophyllum, if you take now, there is something called as adventitious bud there. If you take the leaf of bryophyllum and you add it in the soil, a new plant will grow from there. A new plant will grow from there. That is bryophyllum. What about stem? Can we have stem also? Yes, sir. How many of you like tea? Tell me in the chat, how many of you like drinking tea? Tell me in the chat, how many of you like drinking tea? Tell me in the chat fast. Sir, one more time, vegetative propagation. Why not? Vegetative propagation, see, it is a type, first of all, vegetative propagation is a type of asexual reproduction. First of all, vegetative propagation is a type of asexual reproduction where plant is propagating, means a plant is growing by a part of their body other than the seed. Usually to grow a plant, you use seeds, right? To grow a plant, you use seed. But in vegetative propagation, you do not need a seed. You just cut a part of the plant and a new plant is growing from there. That is called as vegetative propagation. See, plant is growing by a part of their body other than the seed. Now in the tea, when you drink the tea, right? Some of you might like ginger tea. Yes, some of you might like ginger tea. Now you tell me in the chat that ginger is there, right? The ginger, which looks like this. Ginger, which looks something looks like this, right? We'll have lines on it. The ginger is there, right? The ginger, is it root or is it stem? The ginger which you use in the making the tea, right? Is that a root or is it a stem? The answer is the ginger which you eat also, right? Ginger garlic paste you make. That ginger is actually a stem. The ginger is actually a stem. It is a stem, not a root. This you will learn in higher classes. Now, when you take that ginger, right, and you keep it in soil, a new plant will grow from there. That is why it's written here. That is also called as vegetative propagation. Similarly, turmeric also. Yes. See here, that is called as rhizome. Now, what about potato? How many of you like chips, potato chips? Now, all of you love eating potato, right? In dosa, everywhere. That potato is actually also not a root. Potato is actually a stem. What you're eating now, that is a stem modification. Remember, that is a stem modification, not a root. That is also very important. The potato which you eat is also a stem. Okay. Then we have called, this is not important in your syllabus. See, vegetative propagation by leaves. See, Bryophyllum. This leaf has something called as buds here, or called as buds. What is a bud? Bud is nothing but a compact shoot. Okay. Now that bud is called as adventitious bud. It's called as what? Adventitious bud. When this bud will fall in the soil, from there a new plant will start to grow. That is also an example of your vegetative propagation. Bryophyllum example with the help of leaf. Leaf is helping in vegetative propagation here. Clear? Now, what about artificial vegetative propagation? In artificial vegetative propagation, we have something called as cutting, layering and grafting. Yes. Now, what is cutting? When you go to the plant nurseries, right? Plant where you buy plants from, have you noticed in one pot they just have kept one stem? Nothing else. Just one stem is kept inside. Yes, sir. That is called as actually artificial vegetative propagation, where we cut a part, where we cut the stem of the plant and we just take the stem. We take the stem and we add the stem in the soil. Now from that one stem, right, that stem, a new plant will start to grow. Just from the stem. That is called as stem cutting. Now what is layering? Layer is nothing but, can you see this plant? The branch is bent. The branch of the plant is bent into the soil. Now from this part here, roots will start to grow. That is also vegetative propagation. You're developing a new plant. Without using seed. That is vegetative propagation. Yes. Then we also have grafting. In grafting, we take two different plants and we join them together. And the lower part is called as your stalk, upper part is called as scion. And we finally cover it completely, and after some time, without using any glue, without using any Fevicol, the two stem will completely fuse or join together. That is called as grafting. Now what are the examples? What will come in your examination? What are the advantages of vegetative propagation? This actually right here is a previous year question. In your board examination, they have asked this question so many times. What are the advantages of vegetative propagation? Now, the first one here is reproduction in seedless plants. Now you tell me, in banana, in the orange, in certain grapes, if there is no seed, how will you grow a new plant? Tell me in the chat now. Tell me, smart kids, if there is no seed only, how will the plant grow? Can the plant grow? No, if there is no seed. That is why in such cases, we do vegetative propagation. That is, we take a part of the plant and we grow a new plant. That is called as vegetative propagation. Clear? Now, then we have genetic uniformity. This was also asked as a competency question last time. Not last time, last year, I saw this question in a sample paper. For example, if a farmer wants his sugarcane, now one farmer has one sugarcane, okay, that sugarcane is very sweet, now he wants that sugarcane to be copied completely. He wants the entire field to be just like this sugarcane. He doesn't want any other sugarcane in the world. He just wants copy of this sugarcane. How do we do it? With the help of vegetative propagation. Because remember students, vegetative propagation is a type of asexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction, what do we obtain? We obtain clones. So from one sugarcane, which is the best sugarcane, we can make so many copies of it. That was a competency based question. Okay. Now, it is rapid, cheap and easier method. Why is it rapid method? It is a rapid method because now you do not have to wait for the seed to germinate. Yes, the time is not required. Directly the plant will start to grow from the stem. So, faster method. Why is it cheaper? Because you do not have to buy seeds now. You do not have to buy seeds. No money spent. Complete free process. And it is also what? Easier method. Because sometimes what happens? The seed will not germinate at all. So, it is an easier method. Okay. Those are the advantages of vegetative propagation. But are there any disadvantages? The answer is yes, there are disadvantages. For example, the vegetative propagation gets easily decayed and are prone to microbial disease because there are no variations. If there are no variations, a plant cannot build resistance easily. Yes. Then vegetative propagation does not get dispersed, resulting into overcrowding because it is mostly, right, there is no pollination is happening here. So overcrowding can happen. Since the genetic uniformity, disease present in the parent is present in the all the offspring. Now I gave you an example that time. One sugarcane is here. That sugar can be copied throughout everywhere. Now you tell me in the chat, if that sugarcane has one disease, will the same disease will be present in all the plants? Yes sir, that same disease will be present in all the plants. That is a disadvantage. Clear? Now, I think we will do sexual reproduction in the next class. I thought I'll finish the entire chapter, but it's already 10 o'clock. Some of you will be sleeping now because I want all of you to attend this class live. Because when you teach live, when you have so many doubts coming up from students, you will also enjoy. Yes. So we will do sexual reproduction, that is both in the case of plants and also in the case of your animals or humans in the next class. If that is okay. Students, tell me in the chat right now. We can do sexual reproduction in the next class. We will do sexual reproduction of flowers and also sexual reproduction in humans in the next class when everyone is awake. Now I feel some of you are sleeping or you'll be, sir, it's bedtime, I have eaten my dinner, I'm feeling sleepy. We will do tomorrow. What say? Let's do the second part tomorrow. Okay. Tell yes sir in the chat. Why are you being so confused? Just tell yes sir. Now, some of you might be watching this video in the morning after waking up. Now I want every one of you to ask your doubts in the comments. All of you ask your doubts in the comment section. I will personally reply to all the messages and clear your doubt. Okay? I will clear your doubt in the comment section. Now what is your job? Your job is to go in the comment section and tell me how was today's class? How can we improve in the next class? And also please subscribe to the channel because in next 20 days, we will be studying rigorously. Every single day we will be coming live and we will be making sure your syllabus will be covered. So please subscribe to the channel and I'll see you in the next class. Until next time. Bye bye. Take care all of you. Take care all of you.